On the under $3 menu at McDonald's, a McChicken is $2. Because when you're craving a McChicken, you deserve a McChicken. And now that McChicken is just $2 with McValue.
Limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher for delivery.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spenton, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we open up our mailbag to take a lot of good questions from our listeners. And we have a wide range of topics to get into, including where some of the Orioles' recent draft picks are going to fit into our next top 50 update next month, as well as the trade deadline, the minor league hitter of the year race, and a whole lot more. And that is part of this episode, which is brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor. IQ Bar protein bars, IQ Mix hydration mixes, and IQ Joe mushroom coffees are delicious, low-sugar, brain and body fuel you need to win your day. The Ultimate Sampler Pack is a great way to try all IQ Bar products and flavors. You get 9 IQ Bars, 8 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. All IQ Bar products are clean labeled certified, entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial ingredients. All IQ Bar products are packed with clean, delicious ingredients to keep you physically and mentally fit, like magnesium, lion's mane, and more. With over 20,000 5-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are fueling their busy lifestyles with IQ Bar's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. Their Ultimate Sampler Pack includes all three. IQ Bars become part of my daily routines, whether it's starting my morning with IQ Joe, grabbing an IQ Bar or IQ Mix to refuel or rehydrate after a hard workout. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, including the Ultimate Sampler Pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text MLB to 64,000. Text MLB to 64,000. That's MLB to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. And as I teased at the top of this episode, we have a really wide range of topics that came in through our mailbag this week. And if you are part of our Discord community, you can drop questions in at any time in our mailbag channel. But if you follow us on social media or you subscribe to us on Substack, feel free to submit a question through there, and we might be able to get to it on air. And let's start with this question from Yoni, and this is a good place to start here. Who is your guess for minor league hitter and pitcher of the year? Nick, I'll start with you here.
Bold strategy. Start with me with everything going on tonight. It's tough right now because you know counting stats. If I'm looking at this, like who would the Orioles pick? Counting stats count. They mean a lot in this discussion. Proximity to the majors, I feel like, is typically something else that gives you a little edge. But I think just kind of looking at the numbers, like I think if Ethan Anderson can get back on the field here soon and pick up from where he left off, I think he has a shot. He's in AA, should end the year in AAA. He's got the home run power this year. I'm sure that always looks nice as well if you can pick a guy with home run numbers. But for hitter, I think I'm going to give the edge to Ike Irish as of right now. Him and Victor Figueroa have like similar OPSs, similar WRC plus. I think they're like 1-2 among qualified hitters, I believe, down in the minor leagues if you take out FCL and DSL guys. But they're close, but Irish, better walks, better strikeouts. So I think if it ended right now, I'm going to give it to Irish. For pitcher, I think you got to right now. I think Joseph Gier was leading the way. And you highlight him in the spring breakout game. You send him to the futures game. I think the Orioles would love to kind of bring him to Camden Yards at the end of the year and present him with the Jim Palmer Pitcher of the Year award as a nice kind of bow to the season. But he also has a 7-2 record, a 2.93 ERA, 30% strikeout rate, and a 6% walk rate. So no narrative needed there. I think he is kind of leading the way. But Yeah, I think those are my two guys as of right now.
Completely agree on Jirwa. It seems like a slam dunk at this point in time. I do think there are guys that potentially could at least make it a closer race by the end of the year, notably Ira Cartaya, Nestor Erman, and Caden Hunter. So we'll see how those guys. Christian Rodriguez, if you want to like just go with overall numbers and not factor in age per level. But yeah, I think Joseph Jirwa at this point, yeah, he's breaking in the top 50s at this point on a wider scale, and just, man, what a year for him. And it'd be like, kind of like we can still draft pitchers even if it's not in the first round type of thing. But hitter side, I do agree Ike Irish is probably the guy right now. I think Creed Willems has a case before he got hurt, especially just because the counting stats and proximity to the majors. Like Nick said, he's in AAA and he's got almost an 800 OPS and doing pretty well for himself. And I think another guy, Ethan Anderson, again, if he can make it to AAA, if they ever promote players again in this organization, and continues what he was doing at AA, if he gets healthy and can do it at AAA, he certainly has a case. And I feel like Frederick Ben-Cosme is almost like that under the radar. Like if he could get to AAA and keep doing what he was doing, maybe he could have a case, but they'll probably give it to a guy that's more notable from a wider standpoint. But yeah, I'll lean Ike Irish as well.
So I wrote a piece that dropped on Substack on Tuesday morning, breaking down the hitter of the year race. And I identified 5 guys that I think have claims for the award right now. It's Iris, Figueroa, Anderson, who you both touched on. I also included Vahivo Aloy. I just think he's had a really nice year. Had a little bit of a slump in June, but he's recovered. Has actually been one of the hottest hitters in the farm system in July. Good defensive shortstop. And then I threw Jaden Loray's name into the mix. I mean, if you look at Nate George winning the award last year, granted, as I acknowledged in the article, I don't think George had as much competition last year compared to the crop of hitters that are out there this year. But what Loray has done as a 19-year-old to walk nearly double the amount of times he has struck out this year, being able to move around the diamond the way that he has, that is a really nice player development success story. I don't think he's going to win it, but I think he's close enough that you have to acknowledge him as, at least as a dark horse candidate. And then I did have a smaller section at the bottom of the story where I noted Creed Willems is an honorable mention. If he gets back to Norfolk and keeps hitting, he's probably right in the conversation at the end of the year. And then Aaron Estrada, the numbers aren't going to be there at the end of the year for him to win the award, I don't think. But you look at how he's adjusted to playing second base full time. That's a box you can check off. He recovered from a horrible start to the year to put up good numbers to this point. And it's probably going to be enough, as long as he has not included any deals at the deadline, for him to get added to the 40-man roster this season. So that narrative does help Estrada, but I don't think the overall number is going to be there at the end of the day for him to win the award.
Nice. All right. Well, here's a question from Edmund, who would want to know which players from this year's draft class are most likely to enter our top 30 next month. Let's kick that over to Nicholas.
I haven't really sat down with my entire list yet. Waiting until everybody signs. So we got a couple more days here. I don't want any surprises after I sit here and agonize over this, because it's going to be tough. There's some guys that I'm really struggling with. I think just thinking out loud to myself sometimes, as I do about this list. But I think at the top, I think I'm going to have Eric Booth Jr. as my top-ranked prospect. Putting the 18-year-old who's played 0 games, I know that's not something maybe I necessarily love doing. I feel like all 3 of us, our final list, the way it ends up coming out over the last year or so, I feel like done a pretty good job of to be at least a little bit more cautious with some of these guys, the wider range of outcomes guys, being a little bit more cautious to begin with, and then pushing them up the list as the season progresses. Like Jaden Loray wasn't even a top 50 guy, and now look how high he is. Caden Hunter, guys like that. I've kind of enjoyed that process as well, and gives us more talking points throughout the season. But I don't know. I just don't see anybody else in the system with like the complete skill set and ceiling that Eric Booth Jr. does. If I'm kind of being honest here, Vahiva Loy, he's got the hit tool questions, right? That he's going to go through slumps. Yes, it's great defense. Yes, it's good power. He could be a premier shortstop in the big leagues, but you got the hit tool questions. Ike Irish, I think I ding him because of the defense, obviously being a first base corner outfielder. But I think for that reason, I'm going to have Eric Booth Jr. as my top guy. The Ty Head will probably be like 9 to 12 range, somewhere in there. I think Dominic Vagley will probably be in the 20s. Kevin Roberts I'll have probably in my top 30. He's one of those guys that I'm probably going to be conservative with, though, to start out with. And then I think Zane Adams will get in my top 30 as well. Yeah, thinking he's kind of in the same mold as the Caden Hunter, Sebastian Gongora, like all these lefties that have had some pretty big rises throughout the year. So I think he fits that mold pretty well. So I'm almost like, do I go ahead and push him into the 20s or do I sit back a little bit here? But yeah, I think he'll be in the top 30 as well. And then Jimmy Anderson and Will Plunkett, I think deserve to be in the conversation at least. Those are the two guys that I'm really struggling with right now. But
yeah, Booth is definitely in a place inside the top 3 for me. I haven't decided exactly where he's going to fall, but I know he is going to be in the top 3. I think you could argue, based on the list right now, that Ty Head could go as high as 8th or 9th with a floor around 12 or 13. So I suspect he's going to end up somewhere in there for me. Vaguely, I feel like it's going to be mid to back part of the top 20 for me. Because I do think there's enough parallels there with JT Quinn, but just not having the experience in pro ball yet moves him a little bit further down the list for me. Like I can't justify right now ranking him above Quinn, ranking him above Sebastian Gongora. So that's kind of where I see him falling. There's a lot of traits I like. Kevin Roberts Jr. is the one that I'm struggling with because there are questions about the hit tool, but I had this thought after our draft recap episode last week. Does Kevin Roberts Jr. walk into the farm system as a more athletic version of Steven Martinez, who has been a top 30 prospect for us all year? Both kind of big, strong, young right-handed hitters with a ton of raw power, very questionable hit tools. Roberts, though, runs better and could play center field right now, whereas Martinez, I think, is already starting to look like a corner guy. So when I have that thought in my head, I'm like, well, maybe Roberts does belong in the top 30. If that's going to be criteria. Jimmy Anderson, I love the bat-to-ball skills, so he'll be in the mix for me. Plunkett will probably be as well. And then Zane Adams, I don't know if I'll go top 30 just yet, but he's definitely going to be in my personal top 50 because, as I talked about last week, he comes into the system with a lot of traits that I like. Left-hander with a good changeup. Fastball command has come a long way in the past year or so. There's going to be some hard decisions, and I just am glad that I can put that off for another week.
Yeah. I haven't really – I'm waiting till post-trade deadline because we're not going to put our list out till after the trade deadline, obviously a little bit after early August. I'm not dialing in until after then, but just the range right now, I have Booth – top 5 for sure. Most likely top 3, definitely competing from a number 1. So he'll be in that range. Ty Head, anywhere from the bottom of the top 10 to I couldn't see him being any lower than 15 for me. Vaguely will vaguely be in my top 30. Ryan Peach, I think, could be close to a top 30 type. Jimmy Anderson, Kevin Roberts Jr., obviously. These are guys that are like borderline. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with them. And then Zane Adams and Will Plunkett as well. Probably closer to top 50 than top 30, but those are guys that are like intriguing me as I start to think more about this as we get closer and closer to that midseason update.
Do you guys think, quickly, to build off that, do you get a bigger sense now that they might actually get all 20? Like, it's just underslot with all the guys they've signed so far. It just seems like it seems a lot more doable now than it did right after draft night when we recorded that episode.
Absolutely. I think, And then you saw that Drew Burress signed Overslot with the A's today. Yeah, I think maybe that's what it came down to with Booth and Burress as well. Maybe Booth, they were able to get right around Slot, a little bit below, but Burress would have been either at or above. Yeah, at this point, I'd almost be surprised if we didn't sign everybody, just because, I mean, maybe Gunnar Garrison, is that what his last name is, as I'm lacking brain cells from sleep? The high school pitcher named Gunnar. I think he could be the toughest, but there are some hints that maybe he's more signable than we thought. So, yeah, I would love it, and I think it's trending in that direction just because everyone so far is surprisingly more underslot or even underslot when I didn't expect it.
As we record this, the Orioles have a little more than $4.1 million left in their bonus pool. So I feel pretty good because the picks that I was concerned about, what I kept thinking coming out of the draft was one of Roberts, Anderson, or Plunkett will have to slip through the cracks for the Orioles to pick up one of the high school pitchers towards the back end of the draft. And that's Gunnar Garrison out of Colorado. And then another right-hander that they took, Ross Davis, out of Rusk High School in Texas in the 20th round. One of those three, chosen in the top 10, is going to have to fall through the cracks in order for them to get those guys, one of those two. Now I'm starting to think that not only could they walk away with Roberts, Plunkett, and Anderson, but that they're going to get one of Davis or Garrison. Another thing to note here is that Braden Fry, who was one of the first draft picks to sign, in fact, he might have been the first one to sign. That was a 16th round pick, Cranford High School, not a guy with a big profile, but you have to figure that they had to go a little bit high to get him. Yet the signing bonus, as of our recording, has not been reported yet, which means it was probably under $150,000. So that's even more, not savings, but that's less money towards the bonus pool, which is a really important thing.
Yeah.
Gonna beat you.
And they also get that 5% overage, which I think the Orioles have proven in the past they are willing to go up to, which they should be. So yeah, I'm starting to feel more and more confident as the days go on.
Yeah, I did like Joe Doyle's draft recap. If you guys haven't listened to that, go check that out, the Overslot podcast. I was very bullish after listening to his words and some of the things that he'd heard directly from the draft room, especially concerning these high school guys. So only a couple more days, we'll see. But to move on to the next question, one more draft question here from Half. He says, name an Orioles draft pick that each of you were less familiar with going into the draft that you are now more excited about now that you've dug into their stats or their tape. Bob, who are you falling in love with more before we even get our eyes on him?
Honestly, it's what's his name? Dominic. I just couldn't remember the first name. Dominic Vagley for me. Honestly, I think, it wasn't like one of the names that I was looking at that they could take with that first picture that they took. But just the more I see about him, he just really is like that perfect example of what the Orioles are looking for. And like we talked about earlier this week, i.e. if you're watching live on YouTube about 20 minutes ago, Kyle Bradish, they were able to turn a guy with a quote-unquote bad fastball or below average fastball, according to Stuff Plus, you give him a sinker, which is also below average according to Stuff Plus, but at least adds some different looks into the mix, and a guy that can spin the ball like really well with the curveball and the slider. Vaguely fits those things. Trey Gibson, it's just something that the Orioles have been looking for consistently. And I don't know, I'm not here saying, the next Kyle Bradish, Dominic Vagley, but I just think once he's in this system and we see what they're able to do with him, I think we're going to like the results a lot.
For me, it's Will Plunkett, because I'll be honest, I knew really next to nothing about Will Plunkett until the Orioles picked him. But then as I started to dig in a little bit more, I kept thinking if this guy had been on the summer showcase last year or he was playing high school ball somewhere in the Southeast, he would have gone much higher in the draft than he did. Just because if you look at him right now, the physical projection currently listed at 6'3", 200 pounds. He's got a really nice right-handed swing, line drive oriented right now, the potential to add power. And when you're drafting a player who's that strong when they're that young as a shortstop, you're taking a chance that they're probably not going to stay there long term. But everything I've seen and read about the arm suggests that he should stick on the left side of the infield. One more fun name, and I'm not saying this guy's going to come into the system as a prospect, but just I think he's going to be fun to watch, is Carlos Sanchez, just because of that utility profile, being able to play outfield, second base, and catch. I have a feeling that next year he's going to be in our last call segment a lot.
I like that. I've been seeing some more stuff on Ross Davis, the 20th rounder, the pitcher. Kind of figure for both the 19th and 20th round guys, like, yeah, they're 2 high school picks, but both only committed to JUCOs. So kind of feel like that 150K should be pretty enticing, especially for Salazar, the 19th rounder outfielder. But Davis, 6'3", 200, it looks like he's up to like 95, 96. He's throwing 4 or 5 pitches already. He's got some fun videos that he put out himself that I found after we recorded that draft recap episode. So he's definitely a little bit more intriguing than I thought at first. But like Gunnar Garrison, the other high school arm, Davis I could see being tough as well, but bet on yourself. Kind of go to the JUCO route, take that year to develop, and then knowing, hey, I could get a good NIL deal, get a good deal at a P4 program the next year. But also, you got up to 150K. Money right now could speak more volumes for him. But I think I want to say Garrison Sumner. We got a lot of Garrisons, Gunners and Garrisons and all of it. I'm going to say Garrison Sumner, the 13th rounder out of BYU. Not saying he's got a super high ceiling or anything. He's 22. He's a senior sign. He's going to be 23 when the 2027 season starts. So, yeah, maybe not some crazy high ceiling, but I didn't realize how high I was on him coming into the year. Even though his junior year, he did have an ERA over 8. So I know for a lot of people, major turnoff, running away. That guy sucks. But I went back and I didn't even reference my own like notes that I had on Garrison before we did that the draft recap episode, because the blurb I had written up on him before the season started was that he's added multiple ticks to the fastball. He was sitting 93 to 95, touching 97 in fall ball. Some carry, effective up in the zone, little extension, but the slider tunnels very well with the fastball and produces a lot of whiffs. Also an average changeup. As that junior year where he had an ERA over 8 is because he was pretty much throwing all fastballs, like more than 80% of the time, I believe. So he's expanded his repertoire. He's added velo in that last year at BYU. A good program, but not like some elite developmental program there. I don't know. I'm excited to see what he can do in a pro system. Again, he moves quickly as a reliever. Maybe the Orioles try to stretch him out as a starter, and we'll see how quickly he can go through the system. But I think there's a little something there with Garrison.
Some Blake Money upside.
That'd be nice.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Definitely. We'll go to this question now from Devin. Can each of you pick a hitter and pitcher to extend and talk through the realistic contracts you'd attempt to give them? And I believe that this question actually came in before the Bradis extension was announced, but it's still relevant, so it makes the mailbag. Bob, why don't you start us off here?
That's wild, if that's true. He just spoke it into existence. I'll go with the easy one first on the hitter side and say Adley Rutschman, because I can't really think of a perfect choice other than him. It's pretty obvious, but I'd give him anywhere from 4 to 6 years at whatever the going rate is for one of the better catchers in the league, $20 million a year for 5-6 years. I'm fine with that. I think it's, especially with him on the IL now for the 3rd time this season. When he's on the field, he's been great. Hey, let's pitch it to him as we're going to give you more rest than anyone else can, because we also got Samuel Basayo here for the next 8 or 9 years with you. So you guys can help each other stay healthy, have the most productive catcher tandem in the league for the next amount of years. Boom, Adley Rutschman, stay with the organization that took you number 1 overall in 2019. And on the pitcher side, I will say this one's a little tougher because I don't want to say Trevor Rogers. I don't want to say Dean Kramer. So I will say, gosh darn it, All right, Nick, you go. I'm going to think about the pitcher some more.
I got nothing else for this. I don't know what a contract would look like for any of these guys, but it's Rogers and Adley, I think, are the top two at this point. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would say Gunnar, but I mean, for many obvious reasons, that would be a pretty tough sign right now. And I don't know how many people would be overly enthused based on the play this season, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. I'm even trying to look like, could there be like a surprise? If you go with the B train, it'd be Dylan Beavers, but I don't know if he's going to get that extension. But would there be even like any surprises down in the minor leagues as a guy? Like, I don't even see that.
No.
Like the Basayo, the pre-debut contract.
Not yet, anyway. Maybe Estrada a year from now, if he can take another step, like Irish in a year or two, Aloy, et cetera, but not right now, I don't think. For my pitcher, I'm going to do the angel on my shoulder says Trevor Rogers, 4 years, $80 million. Lock it in. Let's do it. The devil on my shoulder says Joseph Jirwa. Let's lock him up now and just – he's basically ready. So you could bring him up, use him out of the bullpen or what have you now for the rest of this season and then have him compete for the – obviously it wouldn't happen immediately, but Joseph Jirwa was like that risky one on the pitching side just because I think the floor is so high as well.
That's bold, and I like it. For a hitter, it's Adley. I think that's the easy answer, and I don't think it's a hot take right now to say that if you want to project out long term, Eric Booth Jr. is actually one of the most likely hitters that's in the farm system now to get a contract extension because if everything clicks, he'll be getting in the majors in his early 20s, and if you have that kind of power speed potential in a center fielder, typically that's the kind of player that teams want to extend right away. Outside of that, maybe if Ike Iris keeps going the way that he has, there's an argument that because this floor is so high, you feel safe giving him a contract extension, let him be a bat first right fielder for the next 7 years or whatever. But I think we still got a little ways to go there. And then for pitching, Trevor Rogers is the probably correct and only answer if you want to look at the current rotation. I'm just throwing out a baseline. Nathan Eovaldi's contract that he signed before last year, 3 years and $77 million, might be reasonable for Rogers, some variation of that, but I'm not, I'm sure there's a lot of factors I'm not considering that can move the numbers or the years in a different direction.
If you want to get, like in the last episode I was talking about, like if you really think that the qualifying offer is the way to go, but you kind of want to just do it now, like get it done, you could do like a 1 year, $25 million contract with a team option for $30 million, something like that, or mutual option.
Yeah, something along those lines.
We're going to go with the question from Peter, who says, what does the record need to be at the deadline for the O's to be all in as buyers? And does this 7-game win streak almost make that guaranteed buyers at this point, even though they lost at the time of this recording to the Red Sox to fall back down to 3 under? What do we say, Zach?
I'll just say that I'm not as concerned about record as I am about games back and the amount of teams between you and the last wild card spot. If there are 3 games under 500 going into the last few days before the deadline, but there's still, let's say, just 2 or 3 out, and there's 1 or 2 teams in front of them, I would buy. But if it's the same record or only a game less, or a game further away from 500, so 4 under 500, but you're 3 or 4 out and you've got 3 teams in front of you for the wild card spot, or you're 4 out and you've got 4 teams in front of you, at that point I'm more inclined to sell, just because there's yet another hurdle. Not only are you focusing on trying to get back to 500, trying to overcome the deficit in games played, but now you have multiple teams to overcome. And at this point, the way the Twins, the Blue Jays, and Astros have faded recently, I don't know if they're still going to be in the mix. It feels like whoever is in second in the AL West is going to keep hovering in the playoff picture for the time being. The Red Sox, I don't think they're going anywhere. Unfortunately for the Orioles, I don't think they're going anywhere. So that's probably the field you're looking at. And then you throw the Guardians in the mix. They seem like a reasonably – I'm not punting their ticket to the playoffs right now, but they're a team I expected to be in the postseason at the beginning of the year. So them getting in now would not surprise me. at all. So I would say that for me, it's more about record and games back. If you want to look in the short run, I think that if they go 500 between the Red Sox and the Braves, that at least allows them to stay the course, and they will have held their own against two very tough teams, and we won't have had the situation where they get really high and then get really low. So, it was an accomplishment to get 7 straight wins because the narrative all year has been the Orioles can't win more than 3 games in a row. And on top of that, they come out and they lose the next 4. They lose 5 out of the next 6. If they can avoid the latter scenario where they just kind of bottom out after a win streak, I'll feel encouraged.
Yeah, there's no record, I think you could say at this point. It's positioning. It's how many teams are behind you, like Zach, or in front of you, like Zach talked about. It's going into Monday night. It was 2 games, 2 teams. Like that's doable. But things can also crumble pretty quickly. It go downhill as fast as you were able to climb up into this position. Twins, Astros, Blue Jays, yeah, they're all kind of not playing exactly top tier baseball right now, but the Twins are also just got Byron Buxton back. Blue Jays, they're going to be aggressive and buy at the deadline. The Astros, I imagine they will too. You got the tough series against the Red Sox going on right now. By the time this gets put on like the main podcast feed, it could be just over city with the Boston series. But to have the Braves, to have the Phillies, and then the Tigers, like if you stumble against Boston and Atlanta, and then you go into that series with the Tigers and you drop that series, you could be looking at, maybe you're 5 games out of a wild card spot. Would you still buy at that point? Maybe, if it's just 5 games, but you could be looking now at 5 teams you have to jump ahead as well, as the Tigers would jump you. The Twins or Blue Jays could get hot on a stretch for 1 week. The Twins could go hot for 1 week, even though I think they gave up like 9 home runs today against Cleveland. Cleveland's calling up like their 40th ranked prospects coming out hitting multi-home run games. But I don't know. Losing Monday night hurts, especially the way that team played Monday night defensively. That makes it hurt a lot more. I like that, just staying 500 through this tough stretch up to the deadline. Just remain consistent for a little bit longer here, and just don't let the Twins, Astros, Blue Jays, Tigers, don't let them jump you. Don't let a bunch of those teams jump you at least. Go into the deadline, buying, get that push. And now if you need to jump 2 teams, that's doable. But if you have to jump 5 teams because things fall sideways here over the next week, it's going to be a lot more difficult.
No, you guys are perfectly right. I would only add that I am potentially buying and selling at the same time. We've seen it in the past. I'm almost like, no matter what, I'm looking at buying 4 players that have control beyond 2026. But it depends, like you guys said, how far back, how many teams between the last wild card and where we are. If we just are saying, hey, Mets, give us Francisco Lindor and Devin Williams, or going for some rentals, and it's going to be interesting because, especially from our perspective, because I feel like there's a chance we could lose 10 of our top 50 prospects at the deadline, depending on if they actually can get themselves back into this, bounce back from this loss on as of the recording Monday night. If you can at least win one of the next 2 Red Sox games, maybe win the series against the Braves, you're right back in it. Or we could have some extra prospects in our system if things go terribly wrong and you're trading some rentals or a Rico Garcia type. So it's going to be, it feels like our season is on the line over the next week or 2. Maybe that's not even the case, but just feels like that right now. Like this game Monday night felt like a playoff game. It was a back and forth affair. I was as invested in the result as much as I have been almost all season in tonight's game. So it should be very interesting.
They're going to drop 2 or 3 to Boston. They're going to get swept by the Braves, but they're going to sweep Detroit, and we're going to be right back in this position again, right up at the deadline, because welcome to 2026. Next question is from Vivek. Speaking of buying, he says, what level of buying are you comfortable with at the deadline? What is the best prospect you would be willing to include in a package this deadline to get a difference maker? Zach?
So I'll start with where I'm not comfortable and then just kind of set the field from there. I'm not comfortable pushing all the chips in to go get Tarek Skubal. That's the move that you make if you are either a team that is one big arm away from a World Series, which I think the Orioles have a lot more ground to cover in their roster to get to that point, or you're the Dodgers and you can push in a lot of prospects from your farm system because you can outspend everyone next offseason and have Tarek Skubal for the next 5 or 6 years beyond this year. So I'm not going there, and I also don't want to see the Orioles mortgage too much in another team's salary dump. So, and I think you're going to see a lot of this at the deadline. Teams that are struggling, looking to move a big contract. If it's for a year or two, I don't have a problem with it, but I don't want to see the Orioles pick up the back half of, let's say, a 5 or a 10-year deal that's not going particularly well.
Xander Bogaerts.
Yep, that would be the first name that comes to mind. If Xander Bogaerts is out there, no. So I don't want to see the Orioles make that kind of move. Outside of that, I think it's pretty wide open. And if you want to look at our list, there is a reasonable scenario where I would be willing to trade Ike Iris. There is a reasonable scenario where I'd be willing to trade Trey Gibson, Vahiva Aloy. I don't believe Eric Booth Jr. is eligible to be traded yet, so we'll throw him out and discuss him along with all the other 2026 draft picks. The only guy that's in the system right now that I would have a lot of hesitation about giving up is Joseph Giroux. Just because it feels like this is a culmination of a lot of efforts that have been going on with the Orioles player development program for the last several years. He seems like he's close to the big leagues. He's putting up big numbers. Is there a world where I'd be willing to move him? Probably, but not at this deadline.
Yeah, that's interesting. Man, I don't know. I'm kind of like, I'm not saying I wouldn't listen or be willing to, in the right circumstance, trade like our top guys, but because we're such on the fringes, like we're trying to just even get in that final wild card spot to have like the tiniest chance to get hot in the playoffs. Like, I'm not really wanting to trade an Ike Irish, a Wahiwa Aloy, Aaron Estrada, Luis De Leon, Joseph Giroux. I'm not wanting to trade those guys personally. I know that will probably limit what we could get back, and maybe we do have to trade one of those guys, but just I would hate to do it unless it was like the right perfect deal. The guys I'm looking at, I would be willing to trade like, I don't know, let's see, from the 11 down range, I think is fine. Like a JT Quinn, even Ethan Anderson, because his value could never be higher than it is right now. And we have Samuel Basayo locked up. We have, in our hypothetical that we just did, Adley Rutschman locked up if that happens. So I think anyone 11 down is really where I'm comfortable. I just think we're almost trying, like in a transition phase where we're trying to develop that next core, get some of these pitchers up here. Just because we're on that borderline, I don't want to give up any of the top guys personally.
Yeah. I mean, you're definitely not mortgaging the farm, because if you listen to a lot of the conversation around the Padres and the deadline, they have nothing to trade. AJ Preller's depleted that farm system, and they finally reached the point where they got nothing left there to move from. Obviously, the Orioles aren't going to do that, but I mean, I've said this for a couple of weeks now. If you get to this point where you are close, I'm not pushing all the chips in, but like if the deal's right, I'll move anybody. I think at this point, because I would imagine if it's going to be a major deal like that, it's not going to be a rental. It's going to be somebody with multiple years of control, a proven major league veteran. I'll take that. Clearly, the Orioles, they've got Basayo set up for these next couple of years, like you just mentioned. You've just locked down Bradish and Boz. You are forming this core here, and you're clearly showing that like the window, it doesn't close this year. If things go south over the next 2 weeks or so and the Orioles fall out of it and they become sellers, it doesn't mean the contention window is closed and they're not going full rebuild here. It's just a little retooling. And clearly, hopefully, some deeper internal looks at how you go about many different things within the organization. But it's not going to be a full rebuild. So, if you want to make a Shane Baz-esque trade, I don't think they will. But if that deal does come to fruition somehow, sure, let's do it. But it's just going to be, if you're talking about acquiring pitching, though, the prices are just going to be outrageous. And it seems like a lot of the teams that, things can change up next week, but it just seems like a lot of the teams where you're like, yeah, they're going to be sellers. Now they're not. So it's going to be interesting to see who actually does become available over the next week or 2 weeks.
Garrett does make a good point that a guy like Reed Detmers, who's under control for, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 more years after the season, if you get him out of LA and get him into a real organization, yeah, maybe that's a guy where I am willing to not a Joseph Giroux. I might be willing to do Ike Irish in that scenario just because value to need at the major league level, what he could provide down the line. I think that is a type of guy where I would be willing to bend where I was talking about before.
Good point there. And I'll go over now this question from Ben Dewhurst. Will Taylor Ward break the single-season walk record for the Orioles this year? He currently has 79, and the franchise record is 118. And if you are a baseball purist listening to this episode, please note that the 118 comes from the Orioles records since 1954, not the official records that for some reason include the St. Louis Browns. That record, by the way, is set by Ken Singleton back in 1975. Bob, does Taylor Ward get to 119 walks in an Orioles uniform this year?
Yeah, of course the toll booth wants to ask a milestone question. I will say no, he does not break the record, only because I think he's going to start hitting for some more power, get a little more aggressive, and not look to walk as much. But the pace really hasn't slowed down that much. So I do think there's a chance, but I'm going to say that the power stroke comes in over the next couple months, the last couple months of the season. So he's taking a little bit less and being a little more aggressive and gets over 100, but not quite all the way there.
If he's still on the team in 2 weeks, sure, why not? Some optimism after this crappy Monday night game.
I will say this. I don't know that he'll get to 119, but I think as long as he's in an Orioles uniform, he will be the first Oriole since Albert Bell back in 1999 to draw 100 or more walks in a season. The closest anyone has gotten since then was Nick Markakis at 99 in 2008. So Ward at least is going to crack the top 13 or top 12 in walks.
Fair enough. Let's go to a question from Natalie, who would like to know, now that Jackson Holliday has 1,000 plate appearances, that's crazy. I didn't realize it was that many already. As a big leaguer, how would you assess him as a player? If there are better seasons in his future, what do those look like? Nick?
We're opening up that can of worms here late at night. Obviously, a lot of people, I'm sure, have very strong feelings about Jackson Holliday. I'm not like over the moon about his performance up to this point, obviously, but you go back to his rookie, his debut, 2024, 60-game sample, like that is what it is. He's a 20-year-old kid, make his major league debut, just get the feet wet, settle in. Last year, we were obviously hoping for a bigger breakout, but he was essentially a league average bat. I mean, he was 3 home runs and 3 stolen bases away from 2020 season, but league average. This year, he's got what? I don't have tonight's numbers, but he's what, a 101 WRC plus entering Monday. And so league average bat again this year. And that's buoyed by like a 15, 16% walk rate. So that's helping push that up a little bit.
Chesapeake, not buoyed.
Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and try to change anybody's mind about Jackson Holliday. A lot of people, again, have very firm opinions about Holliday's play up to this point. But personally, I'm just thinking he's 22 years old. And like, to put that in perspective, Ike Irish, the first round pick last year, is also 22 years old and still an A-ball. That's another conversation, whether he should be an A-ball or not. But like, Holliday's had 1 full year in the big leagues last year at 21. He gets the spring training wiped out because of the handmate plague that swept across baseball in spring training. And then, as we talked about at the beginning of the year, right, he kept getting bumps in his rehab. The pain wouldn't go away. I can't imagine he's 100%. And that's just something he's going to be battling all year. Hopefully some nights the pain is subsided more than other nights, and he can have a good night. But we know that's a well-known issue after the surgery. Sometimes it takes longer for some guys for that pain to go away. Sometimes it takes a year. Sometimes it takes more. Sometimes the power gets drained. Sometimes it doesn't. I just imagine for a younger player like Holliday, missing spring and then having your spring training essentially be in AAA, but it's up, it's down, you're stopping, you're starting, you're in pain the entire time. I can't imagine it's gone very well for him this year. So I'm not going to sit here and say like it's all hamate issue and that he's going to be some stud next year when he's fully healthy. But I have real concerns about Holiday, but I'm also like giving him another pass to next year and saying that I think at this point next year, like if we enter June next 2027 season and he's still barely a league average bat and showing a lot of the same defensive issues we've seen, and he still has a lot of these same question marks, then I think we can have like a much harder conversation about Jackson Holiday. But for right now, I'm just not at that point with him.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Nick just said about Holiday's last year and a half. There was some progress in 2025, however imperfect. There was at least some progress, and then this year, the hand injury has thrown a lot of things off. And I just want to point something out here too, which is that Jackson Holiday's the same age as Termarr Johnson, who was chosen 4th in that draft. Johnson has a sub 700 OPS in AAA in the Pirates system right now. Drew Jones was the number 2 pick. His career has not worked out so far. Kumar Rocker was 3rd. If you look at the top 6 picks in this draft, not a lot of value so far. It goes in order: Jackson Holiday, Drew Jones, Kumar Rocker, Termarr Johnson, Elijah Green, Jacob Berry. It's not until you get to Cade Horton at number 7 that you start to think, oh, well, there's a guy that if we were redrafting now, based on his production, would easily go in the top 5 or top 3, maybe even be the number 1 overall pick. So put it into perspective of the rest of that draft class of what Holiday is doing at his age. And I just want to throw this out. And I'm not going to tell either one of you who this player is until we've completely exhausted this discussion. And then I'll tell you, because I don't want to cloud your judgment. But I had a thought recently. What if Jackson Holiday is not ever going to be a star, never going to be a franchise building block, but he'll fall into the range that a lot of number 1 picks have, where they're good enough that you can't just declare them a bust. And so I use this season, it's a recent all-star season from a second baseman, as my baseline. 305 average, 368 on-base percentage, 411 slugging with a 113 WRC plus and a 3.3 F4. If Jackson Holiday averaged that over the next 4 years, would the two of you be happy with that?
Yeah.
Thrilled. To be honest with you, I'd be thrilled.
That player, by the way, is Adam Frazier in 2021.
Still
at least he'd be younger doing it, it's tough. Jackson Holiday, this injury, I feel like we talked about it when he finally did come back from the hamate bone injury and all the resets that he had to go on, that we basically weren't expecting that much from him, at least in the first half. Because of that, it's unfortunate. So I do think there's some real breakout potential in his age 23 season next year. But just for some context, he went from 2024 7.2% walk rate to 8.6% last year. It's at 15.2% this year. So that's getting better. The ISO went from 121 to 133. It's at 159. He's got a 253 BABIP, which is low for a lefty with his speed. That could explain the 206 batting average. It looks like it's 98, 99 WRC plus. The defense looks anecdotally better. It's hard really to say. It still doesn't look amazing, and the defensive metrics, who knows? But basically, if he could continue to even incrementally, if he doesn't really break out and make a huge leap, if he just continues to improve slightly, I think, he's, as a Boris client especially, he's not going to be a guy you extend because it'll cost way too much for the kind of player he is. But I think he could be a very, very valuable guy to have. And he'll be here for his age 23, 24, 25, and 26 season before hitting free agency. You could do worse. As frustrating as he has been, I still think he is very underrated by this fan base.
Yep. All right. Bobby Jones question. He says, who is the most likely to make it as a middle of the rotation arm or better between Joseph Gira, Caden Hunter, just going to read off the entire list here, Luis De Leon, Nestor Herman, Boston Bateman, and Trey Gibson. Zach, what are your thoughts on this question?
If I had to guess right now, I would probably put Gira 1, followed by Gibson 2, And then a coin toss between De Leon and Herman 3. De Leon might be one of those guys that never throws more than 5 innings in a start, or rarely does, but the kind of stuff that he gives you from the left side at his peak, putting up really high strikeout numbers is something important. Herman, though, may eventually emerge as more that middle of the rotation workhorse that you like to see. Hunter, there is some reliever risks there, but there's no denying that how far he's come this year, so you can't discount his chances. And then Bateman, younger guy, a little bit nervous about this injury situation right now down in Frederick. But even if that is the worst case scenario, he could still be back in a few years. And with the progress that he's made this year, especially with his slider, you start to dream on the ceiling a lot more. So I guess if I had to put this in an order, it would be Giro 1, Gibson 2, probably De Leon 3, then Herman and Hunter all pretty close together, and then Bateman.
Yep, that's exactly the same as I feel. Almost to a T that Zach just said. And maybe Bateman as a young 6'8", big lefty with power stuff. Like, you got Sasquatch coming in late in games as a reliever. That ain't too bad either. But yeah, basically, I'm a 1-for-1. Completely agree with everything Zach said.
I do have to preface this by saying I do have an issue with the question. And it's already a very, very long list. But given that group of arms, I think it's missing one that deserved to be in there as well. I've seen a lot more positive talk about this guy lately, which is good. Welcome to the hype train. Been going for about a year now. It's going strong. Everyone is welcome. Sebastian Gongor. I think he's also in the same range of arms and could also, he wouldn't be my answer for like who I would give the best odds to, but I think he would be up there if you included him. So want to show Sebastian Gongor some love as well there in that answer. I think Luis De Leon has like the highest ceiling, but that's obviously a risky pick. Caden Hunter, he's shown a lot of improvements since we started hammering this point about, having to work deeper into games, lower the walk rate. He's done that. So just keep doing what you're doing there. Trey Gibson could end up having that Brandon Young-esque career trajectory. That would be amazing if he did. But I want to use this quickly as an opportunity to talk about Nestor Herman. And I'll just go with Nestor Herman for the sake of conversation here. So his walk rate skewed by 2 bad April outings. He walked 11 guys in 2 outings. But since then, he's made 11 starts since the beginning of May. He has a 5.9% walk rate. And in 3 starts this month, he's got 18 innings, 1 run allowed, 14 strikeouts to 2 walks. He's allowing a 3.2% barrel rate, a 33% hard hit rate. So that's 93rd and 91st percentile respectively. So when opponents do make contact against him, it's not good contact. He's never going to be someone that I think runs like a ton of strikeouts, but I do think there's more whiff in the tank with Herman. He probably does need to throw more strikes. The four-seamer, with the four-seamer and cutter specifically, but that splitter, as we talked about a couple weeks ago specifically, that's a disgusting pitch. It's running like a 49% whiff rate this season. The fastball's got a ton of life. It's 93 to 94, but he's got more gas in the tank as well. So like, he's a handful of outs away from like 10 or 11 quality starts this season down in Norfolk. And I think he's getting overlooked. I don't think he's getting enough attention as he deserves. I think he's closer than a lot of people think. It's just, I wrote before the season that what if it's Nestor Herman who hits first? Gibson got the first chance because he's now part of that mix of arms that when the Orioles need that extra arm, it makes sense. He's further along. But 2 years from now, 5 years from now, like if you revisit this exact list, I wouldn't be shocked if it's Nestor Herman is like the top guy. And Jira, Hunter, it's not a shot at any of those guys. And like me being less optimistic about them, it's just I think Nestor Herman he could be there within a couple of weeks. He could be in the big leagues, and I think he should be. He could also be traded. If the Orioles are going to be buyers, he's a near MLB ready arm, and with the right organization that also likes Herman stuff, obviously he could be a big piece in a deal. But whether it's here in Baltimore, whether it's somewhere else, I think Nestor Herman's being slept on a little bit.
I agree with you, and I feel like what I like about him is there's still projection there. Like he could add some velocity. He could, he's not a finished product by any means, and he's still already doing this well. So yeah, for him, and Gibson, I could see him passing Gibson like pretty clearly, or I could see them being, battling it out to see who could be better. But I think both are going to be really solid mid to bottom of the rotation starters. But I think I would give Erman higher upside at this point, just because I do feel like there's more in the tank there than he's shown even.
And that discusses a good segue to this question from EJ. Which yet to debut Orioles arm do you think could have the biggest impact on the rest of the season for the team, i.e., not as a trade chip? So, in other words, debut as an Oriole sometime here in the second half, have an impact down the stretch. Nick, I'll turn it back over to you here. You may have just made the case for Nestor Herman. Do you want to stick with that, or do you have any other arms in mind?
Yeah, I was trying to look, and I don't know. I can make a case for another guy or two, but it's Herman for me. Like, again, that splitter could be a weapon in the big leagues right now. Again, he's sitting 93, 94, but with like 18, 19 inches of induced vertical break. It's not a ton of extension, but if he could throw more strikes with the fastball and the cutter, I think he could set a lot of his other pitches up well. If he's still in the organization, not moved in a trade, I would be intrigued to see what the stuff looks like in like 1 inning since out of the bullpen. Use that opportunity to get his feet wet in the big leagues. It would have been, up to this point, it would have been Levi Wells. That would be my answer, but I think it's pretty clear he's not going to come back this year. There is still a shot, but I don't think we've gotten any update since that core surgery. So it's not going to be Levi Wells, obviously. So yeah, I'll go with Nestor Herman.
I think that's a good choice, but just to be a little bit different, I will say Luis De Leon. He has to be added to the 40-man, or he will be added to the 40-man this offseason anyway. So if you want to DL Hall him circa 2023 and get that power lefty ground ball like Yanier Cano from the left side with more strikeout whiff stuff, could work, or it could flame out. He could either be Francisco Rodriguez when he came out of nowhere and showed what kind of reliever he was. And obviously I think Luis De Leon, unlike DL Hall, is more destined for a rotation than bullpen. But for, a chance to really just come out there and give it all he's got, just throw it down the middle, kid. They're going to hit it on the ground or they're going to miss. I think it could be fun. And maybe even Joseph Jirwa if you really want to get crazy.
As far as impact is concerned, I think Herman's the right answer, because whether you stick him in the rotation, he makes a few starts for you, or you do put him in the bullpen, he should be able to go into that and hit pretty meaningful innings for you in relief. I'll just throw Yaki Rivera's name out too, because he's just steadily producing down in Norfolk, and maybe the role he gets in the big leagues is not the one that you think for outing to outing is going to have the most impact. But I can still see him being a guy that, if he does get to the majors this year, could at least fill some innings for you out of the bullpen in spots that right now are hard to fill. A starter doesn't get through the fifth. You've got a big deficit early on. You're just trying to keep the game close, or maybe it's the opposite of that. Maybe you got a big lead early on, but you want to keep the rest of your bullpen fresh. Yaki Rivera could be a good guy to plug in down the stretch, because he's shown he can handle those multi-inning relief outings in AAA. And as I've said for the last couple of months with Rivera, maybe he doesn't have the strongest Rule 5 case, but while he's in AAA putting up the numbers that he is, give him a shot. And if he doesn't pitch well for you in August and September, you can DFA him in the offseason. Or you can just leave him on the 40-man and stash him in AAA next year. Either way, you at least tried it. So that's kind of where I sit with Rivera. Maybe he doesn't have the biggest impact, but there's still a reason to believe you could see him pitching in the majors later this year.
Along the same lines, maybe Micah Ashman's the guy. I know he's kind of just hiding in AA still. It should be in AAA, but man, if you really need a lefty that there's not a lot of tape on, and maybe you don't even need tape because all he does is throw a fastball, lefties are at a premium, and he's going to come in and throw strikes and get strikeouts. Maybe he's a guy.
That's why I like the Luis De Leon call, though, because you're not asking him to start down the stretch. You're just 1 inning. Let's go out there, be you, throw your stuff. And again, how many other lefties, even in the major leagues, can run it up to 97, 98 miles per hour with his kind of stuff? I think he could harness it for those short stints.
with that, we will head into our final segment of the night. Last call brought to you by Checker Spot Brewing, located at 1421 Ridgely Street. Checker Spot is not far from Camden Yards, making it the perfect place for a pre- or post-game drink. However, if you don't have tickets to the game or the Orioles are out of town, Checker Spot is a great place to go and watch the game because not only do they have good food and drinks, but they also have plenty of TVs, and they are open 7 days a week. Right now, though, you should be marking your calendars for Saturday, August 1st. That is when Checker Spot will be joining fellow South Baltimore Brewery District breweries Pickett and Mate Beer Co. in their annual hot dog race. Checker Spot as Relish is a two-time winner, but they were knocked off by Pickett as Mustard last year. Mate will be joining this year as Ketchup. That will be taking place in the afternoon of Saturday, August 1st, in the parking lot outside of Pickett, and will happen before the Orioles take on the Phillies at Camden Yards that night. Be sure to check out South Baltimore Brewery District's social media channels as well as Checker Spots for more details leading up to that event. And now we're going to go to a Discord/patron who I believe is now a multi-time winner in the non-existent contest to get the last call question in the mailbag. Maybe in the future it will be a contest. But for right now, Sterling getting back in here for the last call with this question, and it's going back to contract extensions. Obviously, the answer is both. But at this point, if you could extend one of Rogers or Adley, who would you extend and why? And Nick, I'll start with you here.
If I can only have one, I've gone back and forth 100 times on this, and I can't fully make up my mind. But I think I'm going to go Adley. You've already locked in Baz and Bradish on good deals. Brandon Young's emerged, and it's beautiful to watch. You've got Dean Kramer for, 2 more years, I think, after 2026? One more year? All right, good fact check, live fact checking here. 1 more year still. I like the way this is shaking out. It is an uninspiring, I believe, upcoming crop of free agent starters. So maybe that does give me a little hesitation, but I think you can pull off another Shane Baz-esque trade for a starter this offseason. The talent and the depth in the farm system is there. It would be a lot harder to replace, in my opinion, the production that Adley gives you than it would be to replace the production that Trevor Rogers gives you. Like, Adley is 4th, if you rank by F4, among all catchers, with at least 200 plate appearances right now. He is 4th in baseball. Continue to have that 1-2 punch of Adley and Basayo behind the plate. Like, offensively, we're just getting the taste of Basayo as he continues to grow offensively and honestly maturing in many ways. I'd still love to have Adley there paired with him to keep them both as fresh as possible. And I know we're recording this just hours after Adley went on the IL for the 3rd time this year, but it was an ankle injury. It was a wrist injury now. It was a concussion. Like, we're not talking about a bunch of soft tissue injuries here with Adley. So I don't know. Another argument I think you could say is, could Ethan Anderson become that guy? Like, potentially, but you're talking about the 4th best catcher offensively in baseball right now in Adley. That production is going to be pretty hard to find out there again. So for that reason, I think I'm going to go Adley.
Well, Sterling, Mr. Ryan Mountcastle, Mr. Clutch, Leody Taveras, somebody's got to stand for these lesser players, and I appreciate you, Sterling. But the question, it's an easy answer for me. It's Adley, no question about it. Just because we have the pitching depth in the minor leagues. We have shown the ability to go out and make a Shane Baz trade. We've shown the ability to sign a Chris Bassett, veteran 1-year deal if we need to fill out the rotation. Yeah, would I love to extend Rogers? For sure. Yeah, I would. But there's also the qualifying offer. You could either get him back for a 1-year deal or get a draft pick for him, some more trade capital, or just more things to play with in the next draft. Whereas with Adley and Basayo with Ethan Anderson at AAA is much more satisfying than Basayo and Chadwick Trump with one injury away from Sam Huff and Chadwick Trump being your catcher duo, with Ethan Anderson potentially on the way up. But, yeah, it's Adley for me, and it's not even close.
Yeah, we're going to be unanimous here. I'm kind of surprised given how tough of a question that this is, but I would go with Adley. And I thought about the recent injuries to Adley, and I came back to the point that Nick just made. It's just a little, bumps and bruises here and there. If let's say for the next 4 years of a 5-year extension, or for the bulk of a 5-year extension. You get an above league average bat who plays defense that's equivalent to what Adley's giving you right now. I actually think that defensively this has been his best season in the big leagues. You continue to get something close to that, and it allows you to rest Samuel Basallo and allows you to keep Adley fresh. I say that you extend him. And with Rogers, it's a very valid point that Nick brings up. The free agent pitching market is not very good next year. So if you lose Rogers, you're going to have a hard time replacing him in free agency. But I think you can make the Trevor Rogers trade again in the very near future and get a guy that hopefully has multiple years of team control, give yourself time to work with them. Joseph Giroux could be emerging here soon. I think what Brandon Young is showing this year is for real. I think at the bare minimum, that is a solid mid to back of the rotation starter for you for the next 4 years, 4 or 5 years, however long he's under team control. So the rotation, losing Trevor Rogers now does not hurt the rotation the way that losing Adley Rutschman would hurt the catching tandem, because you brought up a great point, Bob. Watch what happens when Adley goes on the IL this year. It's Sam Huff. It's Chadwick Trout. There's just not a lot of ceiling to that group, and I would love nothing more than for Ethan Anderson to break through, and I think there's a real possibility of that, but there's also no guarantee of that right now. And if there is, well, guess what? Ethan Anderson also has a little bit of positional flexibility built into his game. He played some outfield in college. He's played first base. So if one day you have a great problem where you've got 3 catchers who can put up a league average numbers or better for you in your lineup, or in the case of Basallo, I think truly elite offense, you figure it out then.
Yeah, and Anderson will have 3 option years. Like, catchers get dinged up a lot. I think it would be in a fantastic situation to be in if Anderson proved he could be a catcher, had the bat to be playing even without that ability to play catcher. Like, yeah.
Just no more Sam Huff. Watching Sam Huff flail around at the plate on Monday night, that was some little league stuff.
And with that does it for this episode. We will be back next week. We will be recording next week after the signing deadline for the draft has passed. So we'll have that as part of our episode. We'll also look at the FCL season a little bit, and we'll probably have 1 or 2 more topics to address as well. In the meantime, you can check out our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitch. We're also over at Blue Sky. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com to check out a lot of our great written content, as well as Patreon.com, where you can sign to become a member today at the $3, $5, or $10 levels and have access to monthly updates to our top 50 list, along with bonus weekly episodes from Bob, Nick, and myself, and patron-exclusive channels within our Discord community. So check that out now at Patreon.com. For Bob Phil and Nick Stevens and Zach Spen, you've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.